Hi, I'm Don Tivanka. In this tutorial series, we are going to learn about SQL or CQL. Both pronunciations give the same meaning. In our previous tutorials, we have learned about what is relational database and also about the tables and the relation. In these tutorials, I'm going to talk about how to create relational database with relations in SQL Server. I'm going to write update statements, insert statements, delete statements, and select statement using SQL queries. And also we are going to talk about joins, functions, stored procedures, subqueries and many things. So if you follow this course, you can learn many things in SQL. Now we know what is a database or relational database. To manage our database, we use software called DBMS. What we normally do here is connect to DBMS and we provide commands, then DBMS will give us results according to the commands. We give these commands using SQL or structured query language. For example, think if we want to get all the books of a specific author, then we write the SQL command as follows. Select all from books where author ID equal 1. From that, we can get all the books where author ID is 1. Likewise, we can write the commands and get data from the DBMS. There are many RDBMS softwares available. We are going to use SQL Server in this tutorial series, and each of these types of RDBMS have same types of SQL implementation. Most of the SQL techniques you are going to use in these lessons can be applied to many RDMS softwares. So this is the basic structure of SQL Server Management Studio. In here, I will explain in later now how to create a database and how to create a table and how to connect to the database using login name and the password. So this is the basic structure. So now I'm going to tell you how to create a database using SQL Server. First, you have to go for the connect, and here you're having a connect prompt, connect to server. Then you have to give the server name. So I'm giving the dot here, mentioning that I'm going to connect my own machine server. And then you have to give the authentication type, Windows authentication or SQL Server authentication. So I'm using SQL Server authentication. Then you have to give the login name. I'm giving my login name as Tivanka12. Then you have to give the password. Then click the connect button. Then in there you are having several folders. From those folders, select database and right click on it. Then go to new database. And here you can give the database name. So I'm giving my database name as practicals. Okay. Then click OK. Then in the database folder, inside database folder, you can have the practical database like this. So now we have created database. So now we have created database. Now I'm going to create a table. So for that, just click on your practical database and then right click on it and select new query. Okay. So in here, we can have two methods of creating tables. The first one is using this query. I'm going to create a table using this query. Okay. So in here, first we have to give the create table and authors, and then we have to define the column names. That means ID for a unique ID. That means ID will be the primary key, and the name and telephone and address. In here, to store ID, I'm using data type of int, and to store name, I'm using data type of varchar. I'll explain the differences between char and varchar in later videos. And then telephone number, I'm using varchar, and address also I'm using a varchar. Then select this query part, and then if you select execute button in here, then the command completed successfully. So you have created a table successfully. And then if you want to insert data, you can execute this part one by one, or you can select all three at once and then execute. Then you have inserted data. Okay. So this is the query for create table, and this is the query for insert data for this table. So this not null means if you insert null values for these fields, then it will give an error. That means you cannot have null values to these fields. That's why I'm using this not null. That means you cannot insert like this. You cannot insert a null value for this table, then that will give an error. Okay, now let's check how to find the tables that we have created. So go to this database and then go to our practical database, and inside that you have a folder called tables. So when you go inside that, you can find the table that we have created, the authors table. So if you want to see the data inside it, then you can right click on it and select top 100 rows. Then you can have the data which I have inserted from here. So this is a select statement. So we are doing this queries. That means how to write a select statement. We are doing those things later. So I just want to show you the tables that we have created. And then if you want to have the design of this table, design means all the columns and which is what are the primary keys and what are the data types that we have used our data table. So you can find that using, but just go to the table and just go to design, and then in here you can find. So in here we have given our our query, we have given the table's primary key as ID. So in here you can find that this there's a yellow color key. That means this is mentioning that this ID is the primary key of this table, and then the name is Vacha 50 and telephone is Vacha 50 and address is Vacha 100. Likewise we can find the design also. Alright, now we are going to see how to create a table without using a query. So for that you have to go to our practical database, and then in tables, right click table and new table. Then in there we have to define our column name. So I'm going to define ID and data type as int, and I'm going to remove this not allow null tag because it should make it not null. And then I'm setting the primary key as this ID. Okay, we can go to right click on it and we can remove primary key, or we can set the primary key. And then I'm going to declare my other fields. So my other fields are name, which is Vacha. This nvacha means ncha or nvacha means we are getting Unicode characters, and Vacha means for non-Unicode characters, and name, and then telephone. So that telephone, which is Vacha, the same as this. Which is Vacha, and address, which is Vacha. I'm going to make it Vacha 100. So we have declared our all the fields: ID, name, telephone and address, and then we are going to save it. When you press Ctrl and S, then you are getting this prompt, and here I'm giving my tables as authors, and I'm clicking OK. Then we have created our table successfully. If you refresh here, you can see that that authors table in here. If you want to insert data to it, then you can go to this. You can right click on the table and then edit top 200 rows. You can go to there, and then in there you can insert your table data, like one in here, John, like our previous data in here. Likewise, an address, I'm making it America. Likewise, we can insert data, and when we select the top 1000 rows, we can find the inserted data. Likewise, we can create a table in this method also. In our next tutorial, we will see how to select the tables and select the data in the tables. Now we are going to talk about difference between Cha and Vacha. But before that, first talk about similarity between them. So both of them store characters, text, strings like data. That means customer name, customer address. Both doesn't store Unicode characters. They all store non-Unicode characters. Ncha and Nvacha for storing Unicode characters. The difference between Cha and Vacha is that Cha has a fixed length. That means Cha is a fixed length data type, and Vacha is a variable length data type. For example, Cha 10. if we store t in here, if we are going to store t in char10, then the t, when we are storing t, all the 10 spaces are take for storing the t. But if we use varchar10, then varchar take only the necessary space to store the t. That's the difference between char and varchar.